Welcome to Viewpoint for the City of Farmington Hills. My name is Bill Costick. I'm City Manager in Farmington Hills. And with me is my regular co-host, our Mayor, Aldo Vagnozzi. Welcome, Aldo.
Thank you, Bill. It just doesn't seem as if 6 months have gone by in this year, but they've been busy months, and as we look at the schedule ahead, it looks like it's going to continue to be busy. What do we have to look forward to? I know we have a council meeting tonight with some items on the agenda, including the handicapped parking ordinance that will allow our volunteers now to enforce the ordinance against those people who are not handicapped but who take up those valuable spaces. What do you see as the accomplishments of the last several months, and where are we going in the future?
Well, we've accomplished a lot, I think. I think that through your first half of your term as mayor, and I don't know if all the residents understand that each year we do elect a new mayor in Farmington Hills by the City Council. But we've been extremely busy, especially the last couple of months, involved with the process of reviewing and adopting a city budget and the Parks and Recreation Millage campaign. Perhaps we ought to discuss those. First, an item that consumed a lot of time in the City Councils was the review of the budget. I think I gave that to you the end of April, and you had a number of meetings reviewing and studying the various expenditures for our operating departments during the year.
Yes, and we had to meet the Economic Times, which have indicated for several months now that there's been a slowdown in the economy, and so we pulled our belt in a few notches. We not only kept the budget within line, but for the first time in several years, we have now fewer city employees working than we did the previous year. Now, part of that is a reflection of our reduced activity in the building department. We also included in that budget discussion and approval was, of course, the court system and the library, the district library. And we did come to the conclusion that the increasing number of cases before our district court probably requires an additional judge, and we will let the voters decide in the fall as to whether they approve the creation of a new judgeship, and if they do, then we would elect that person in the 1992 election.
That's right.
Are you going to be able to live with the budget, creating special problems?
No, I think we're going to live with the budget. I think it's a good, responsible budget that we've adopted. As I look not only to this year, but to the fiscal year, which began July 1, 1992, I think that we need to start to plan that government has got to try to trim down just like the private sector has wherever possible. I don't think that for a growing city we've ever been expanding too rapidly, but in the face of growth, I think it's a good demonstration of our intent to reduce our number of full-time employees. So we are actually going to be down 4 full-time employees from the prior operating year, and as you indicated, partly a result of the decline in new construction. But it is an area, and our meetings with the judges and the library board, in fact, were quite lively about the pressures that both the court and the library are feeling from all the growth that experienced in our community for the past year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the library every week sets a new record for the number of patrons, and yet the space especially in the 12-mile branch stays the same. And of course, they are thinking about asking the voters sometime in the future for authority to build a library with more space and more desks and more books. We had a good response from the voters on the Parks and Recreation millage. In fact, a fantastic majority favoring it. What has been done since that May passage to carry out the mandates of the millage?
Well, two things have taken place. If you recall, one of the priorities for the first year, this was a renewal of the 1/2 mil for 8 years, And in the 8-year plan, we were going to emphasize land acquisition. To be developed, this land would be developed as athletic and family recreation facilities in the future. And with respect to the purchase of land, we have been working on the purchase of a large piece of property, some 90 acres in size. And if we're able to secure that purchase and hopefully a grant from the Michigan Department of Natural Resources through the Land Trust grant program, that'll give us the opportunities and unfold the doors. It's really kind of a key to what we're planning. I know that you, Mayor Vagnozzi, you've been real concerned about getting the ad hoc committees moving that we said we would create. There are really 2 ad hoc committees, one to examine the sports complex, or the athletic field, major park we'll call it, complex, that we hope to identify for more intense recreation, and form a committee that would be composed of the competing interest groups, and the other for the so-called Peltz-MDOT property. Sometime we're going to have to rename that property.
Yeah.
But the Peltz-MDOT property is located on Farmington Road, just south of I-696 on the west side of Farmington Road. And that's been a controversial piece of property for the past couple of years. The suggestion was that we should create an ad hoc study committee to do a master plan for it. And we're going to make those appointments and get those committees started.
That's on the agenda tonight, and to approve the committees, name some citizens who have volunteered for it, and then ask the Parks and Rec to name some people on it, and the Council of Homeowners, and I think we'll be ready to go in July. There's another today again, Monday, and this is Monday, June the 24th, was the first day of our actually the beginning of our recycling program, even though the actual pickup won't start until July 1st. How did that go today, the dropping off of the containers?
Well, as we show this program for the first time, or at subsequent times, we did begin June 24th dropping off the recycling containers. I understand that it went pretty well. The Monday refuse routes were all in receipt of their recycling containers, and that's a big job. We have over 18,000 recycling containers to drop off. And Farmington Hills is a big city. You know, we're 34 square miles in size and 290 miles of roads. So when you consider our refuse routes and the challenge of dropping off 19,000 of these, plus as we look ahead, although we've got to consider that as we go through the year, we hope to bring into the service of the condominiums in the city, and there are almost 4,000 condominiums throughout the community. And many communities are starting to talk about what are we going to do about providing recycling opportunities for our apartments. We have 10,000 apartments in the city, and so all in all, as we look to the future of solving our waste disposal problems and recycling, many challenges lie ahead for us. But we have spent a lot of time looking at the ordinances this year, discussing how this program is going to come together and work.
I guess one of the questions that I get is what is a resident required to do? Separate the items, or put them all in that bin all together? What is the procedure? What are we asking the residents?
Well, when you get your bin, as you know, in each of the bins there's going to be an instruction sheet that you can, I guess, and a magnet that you can put right on your refrigerator, and as a weekly reminder of what you're to do. But when you put the recyclables in the container, we're going to collect plastics, certain kind of plastics. They are limited, and please note your instructions. Newspapers, and that's the newspaper with a dull luster to it, not the shiny luster. Metal cans, tin cans that typically are found with food products. And lastly, what did I leave out?
You see, we got
glass,
yes.
And
clear glass, and
right.
And what's the other? There was one other color. Is it brown, or is it
clear and green? I think
green.
Clear and green are the most popular colors of glass. So, what you do with your bin is the bins are called for commingling recycling. You put all the materials in the bin, and when the refuse is actually collected, when the refuse truck, the recycling truck, follows the garbage truck, comes along in front of your home, the container will be attached to the truck in a special adapter so that the materials can be sorted in different bins on the truck, and they've found that this is a fairly efficient process. And then the materials are hauled off to what we call a materials handling facility and sorted, baled, bundled, whatever, and taken off to markets. Most communities are really starting to gear up for this now. Livonia, as a neighboring community, is starting July 1 as well. Southfield started to do this program last July 1st. So we're looking forward to this and the success of it. Of course, a major component is our compost program. And I think we've all got to become educated. You know, it's interesting that this is really something that affects each one of our homes, including mine, including yours. And we're all going to have to make an effort here. It's a brand new way of living.
Yeah, I know that working on the budget in the last few years that not only have we been running out of space in the landfills, but the cost has been going up, and up. And if this program works the way we think it should work, that we will not need as much landfill space. We will be able to reduce and save that space for a longer period of time.
If I could add on this, you know, as you think about this whole issue of solid waste disposal and recycling, it's a real broad issue. Consider this. You've probably read in the papers about the Oakland County incinerator proposal, and that's almost a $500 million proposal, and the voters will get a chance to vote on one component of that, well over a couple $100 million plan to build this incinerator in Auburn Hills. Now, if we are part of the county plan, we have to truck all of our refuse to Auburn Hills. We've decided at this point not to join the county plan, but still our voters, like everyone else in Oakland County, will have a chance to vote on it. But every ton of material that we can take out of the waste stream and dispose of it other ways, through the incinerator or hauling 30, 40 miles to a landfill, will help in the long term reduce our costs. And so people have asked, why is there a charge for this? Why do we have to pay $54 a year or a quarterly charge? And the reason is because there are no markets that are profitable at this time, and in the short term, to make the investment, it costs money. So what we're paying for are the extra collections. You're going to have 3 collections from now on: the regular garbage collection, the recyclable collection, and a separate collection for your compostables, which are leaves, grass trimmings, tree trimmings, and the like.
Now, we've never picked the grass clippings and leaves up in the past, so that's an entirely new program.
Well, we haven't separately, right. We've picked it up in the garbage trucks and hauled it off to the landfills and mixed it with everything else. And you know, there is a law that in 1993, by the end of that year, it is going to be illegal to dump grass clippings or leaves in a sanitary landfill. And of course, people say that seems silly. But the reason is that it's considered that we can make fertilizer and valuable material out of what has been traditionally called waste before. And why take up valuable landfill space where a safe landfill is built just to store organic materials that will break down?
A number of other activities have been taking place, and especially in coming up in July, the Founders Festival. I understand we're going to have a role in that program. Not only are we participating in the parade, the council and the city manager, but we've arranged a kind of a celebration or recognition of those residents who served in the recent Desert Persian Gulf War. We have obtained the names of several of them. We have invited them to both the parade, and they will march as a unit, and to an afternoon ceremony at Heritage Park starting at 2 o'clock, and it's open to all residents of the community. We will have hopefully a brief program, and we have a plaque that we will place somewhere in the park. I don't know whether the location's been decided on yet, but that's only part of the activities for that week. What else is going on during Founders Festival week?
Well, of course, one of the highlights always is Kids Day, and I think that starts on the. You're going to have to check the local newspapers on this one, but I believe it's the Thursday before that long celebration. Kids Day at the Park, Shiawassee Park in the city of Farmington. We actually planned this together with the Chamber of Commerce, but that's always a well-attended event. And then on Thursday night, Friday night, and throughout the day on those days, downtown Farmington will be alive with vendors of all kinds and all the civic clubs, other groups, downtown programs, crafts and arts for sale galore. And throughout the community, there'll be different events, such as the Ox Roast, which is a tradition at the Elks Club. And I think you've got to watch the paper closely, the Observer. There's a whole host of activities planned for that week. And everything culminates on Saturday night. That's the weekend of
13th.
July.
Yeah, 13th is the Saturday. And then the prior weekend, Saturday and Sunday, we're having a return engagement for the Civil War encampment at Heritage Park. And I found that very interesting last year, especially talking to the camp doctor and some of the cures that he had for the soldiers of that war. And I don't know whether, I'd want to be treated that way today, but I guess for the time, they did the job. And that's entirely free. That's open to the public. They have, I guess they do have some artifacts that are for sale, but they are authentic Civil War, dressed in the authentic Civil War uniforms, and the tents are authentic, and the equipment. So it's very interesting. I know we got many good comments last year from that activity.
Yeah, that's July 6th and 7th at Heritage Park, following the 4th of July holiday. And you're right, that's been a very successful program and really exciting. Especially they have a couple of skirmishes. And again, if you'll watch the local newspapers, there should be some advertisements that come out on those, but it's entirely free. It's a very nice outing for the family, especially young children. If you're at all interested in history or want to teach the children about history, I would encourage you to get over to the Civil War encampment July 6th and 7th at Heritage Park. Free, great program, highly educational, and after we saw it last year, the mayor and I were ready to join.
Yeah.
It's time for a brief break, and we're going to be right back and talk about the activities and some of the happenings in the city of Farmington Hills. We'll be right back.
Because you gave to the Torch Tribe, Amos Williams is still a terrible cook.
Needs something.
But he's still cooking, and Pat Fisher is still full of hot air.
Happy birthday, Grandma!
Thank you, sweetheart.
And doing fine after throat cancer. You made the difference that kept their lives the same, even if Han Lee Tan dances just like he did before losing his eyesight.
Break any toes lately?
Nah, just a few hearts.
Together, there's so much good we can do.
While you're pregnant, don't take drugs unless they're prescribed by your doctor.
Mommy, don't.
Well, we're back from our break, and looking again at the list of activities done and yet to be done. We've had a number of meetings, as city manager knows, with various subdivision groups and neighborhood groups in relation to any number of issues. The main ones being areas that are seeking water, sewer, or paving. And I'm going to ask Bill to explain how that works, so that if there are some other areas that may be in need of those services, he can tell you how to go about it. Bill?
Well, the general procedure is that if you're in a subdivision where you need public water lines built, if you don't have water available, sanitary sewers where you may have septic tanks, and there are very few of those areas left, but if you are in one, or if you're among the residents who live on some 30 miles of gravel roads that are left in the city, then and you're interested in having them paved, to start a process to create what we call a special assessment district, what you do is contact my office or the office of the city engineer, and a spokesman representing your subdivision or group would ask for what we call an informational meeting. And what that amounts to is the engineering department will prepare a synopsis or an outline of generally how an improvement project for water, sewer, sanitary, or paving would occur in your subdivision, We'd invite all the residents who would be in the district to come into the city council chamber some evening. We'd have an informal discussion and presentation and explain just how we'd go about it, what the cost might be, and those kinds of procedures. And from that point, then, you, the residents, would take petitions that we would prepare for you, that you'd circulate among your neighbors, and if you get a 51% majority, bring the petitions back in to the city engineer, and they'll be brought to city council. If there are 51% or greater, and we usually hope for greater, we've had a number of these projects come in right on the margin, 51% in favor, 49% opposed, and that's created a lot of dilemma for the city council.
Mm-hmm.
But this spring, we've had probably close to 8 or 9 separate projects where we've conducted public hearings. There are 2 public hearings required for each special assessment district. Most of these this year have involved paving projects, and we do have quite a vigorous paving program going this year as a result of it.
We have 2 items on tonight's agenda. One is a water district, and the other is a paving district, both involving the same area of Quaker Valley subdivision. So tonight is I think is the cost hearing. We will give them the news on how much it's going to cost, and then the residents affected will decide whether they want to go ahead with it. But that seems to be pretty solid. I think it was 7 out of the 8 residents were in favor of the two programs.
You know, I think it's important, Aldo, that if residents are interested, that you come and talk to the city engineering staff first, because when we go through the information meeting and prepare the documents, you're much better off to have the information and to make it available, and we'll make it available to all the residents that are going to be affected. And what you avoid that way is a lot of misstatements, misinformation, rumors, and so forth, and in the past, that's caused problems.
Mm-hmm. But we want to stress that these are initiated by the residents. Usually when the city is requested to, we will set up an informational meeting, but then a resident or group of residents have to take the initiative in getting the petitions signed. I know council's been talking about a little summer, well, not a break, but kind of a slowing down, but I don't know whether we're going to be able to slow down. Just looking at the June schedule, so that what we've done so far, in addition to the regular council meetings, we had the River Rouge cleanup early in June, and I think we cleared another area of the river of the debris. Bill, you remember some of the things that came out of that river this time?
Well, as it's always been the last 8 years, we've had a good time in the river with the cleanup, but in addition to tons and tons of wood, I really don't have a count on how many tons of fallen logs or other wood materials we carried out, but we had some huge plastic pallets this year that came out, almost like an industrial type pallet. And of course our usual number of tires.
Yeah. A couple of them
tennis
were
balls,
fairly large tires, truck tires.
Golf balls, and I'm sure none of them were mine.
You can't drive that far. There was a single ski, and I don't know whether it matches one that was found last year, whether next year we'll have to look for the other ski, but there was one ski that came out of the river. And then we had the 8-mile beautification drive. How did that, I was out of town that weekend, how did that come out?
Well, good. I think that the business community, through our planning staff, we've been working with the business community and property owners along 8 Mile Road. And what is evolving here is a plan that would hopefully see 8 Mile Road improved all the way from Madison Heights, all the way to our community, the whole 8 Mile corridor. So all the communities that border 8 Mile are planning to undertake a beautification program to clean up the frontages of properties, to clean up the curb lines, the roadways, the sidewalks, the trees, and to actually do a tree planting, for example. So hopefully, and this is really going to require a couple of years, Aldo, a couple of years of emphasis, but it is exciting to think that we could do something to impact the image of 8 Mile.
Yeah, I hope the residents who drive Middle Belt and 9 Mile have noticed some of the improvements at that intersection. the shrubs and the trees that have gone up. I think we started last
Do
year.
you feel that's made a good impact?
Yes, I think so. And this is the second year now, and you can notice the growth that's taken place. And I've had several good comments on it. People who've maybe as the snow melted, have noticed it for the first time. And right in that area, we had one successful meeting with the residents on the renewal, renovation. What is the title that we've given to
The target area plan.
Target area plan. While it's not tied into the Target store, this one does happen to be in the neighborhood, does happen to be close by, where we are going to be working with some of the older areas in the city and giving them help and helping themselves to do maybe plantings to improve their streets and to try to prevent any possible blight in our community. And out of that first meeting, this was an area that does not have a subdivision type of activity, and they did agree that they would very much like to form an association, such as Old Town has and nearby, and so that they too can have some representation with the city, and I think that's a good development.
Yeah, and one of the offshoots of it is you might be interested in knowing, they're going to meet again in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So through our planning staff and their efforts, we've helped them get organized. And
Again, any area that wants to be considered, for that kind of activity or other activity, should contact City Hall, and we will set up the appropriate meetings. I've also been attending some meetings of the new Ethics Committee that was just established. They've had 2 meetings so far. They are now reviewing the ethics code that we adopted last year, and it's very interesting that they were quite pleased with what we've done. They refer. Well, you were at the meetings.
Yes.
that they said that it was a good document and it might need a few changes, but basically we covered what has to be covered.
well, you on that point, you're going to be quite busy throughout the summer, it appears.
Yeah,
With that ethics committee.
with the ethics committee.
And you and Mayor Pro Tem John Grant are going to be
Yeah.
active in that.
And they're meeting every 2 weeks, so there goes the summer break.
There goes the summer break.
Then we've had issues called to our attention, several of these by our residents, and one is the whole question of noise control. We are still considering a sign ordinance that will attempt to reduce some of the signage in the stores that in some cases has created quite an unpleasant atmosphere. We had some citizens concerned about the effects of chemicals on the lawns, and whether they were driven by winds and so forth, whether they would affect the neighborhoods. And I mentioned the sign noise. Oh, and there's another one, another issue. What do we do about these temporary businesses? And some of them unfortunately extend into quite a lengthy time. So we're looking at all those issues, and in the next few months hope to have some solutions.
So what the point is that springtime and summertime and city government is a very busy time, as seems like the rest of the year. But we're halfway through this calendar year, and it's been an exciting year. I think a year that we'll look back on with a lot of accomplishment, and I'm looking forward to the next 6 months.
Yeah. And now in a couple days I'll be getting my recycling bin. I'm looking forward to it, and see that I do the right thing, because the neighbors around me look to me for leadership, but I'd better be right, or they'll be on my back. But the one thing, the first week of the recycling happens to be the 4th of July holiday falls in there, so there will not be a pickup on the 4th of July. But the Thursday pickup will be done on Friday, and the Friday pickup will be done on Saturday. I learned that the hard way when I...
Correctly stated.
Yeah.
And with that, this has been the Farmington Hills Viewpoint Show with Mayor Aldo Vagnozzi, and I'm Bill Costick. Keep watching us on Thursday evenings. Thank you.
Thank you.